basketball can be a mysterious sport.
The team whose logo is in this envelope will have the first pick in the NBA draft.
Watch James. Now wanted a timeout, but too late to get it. And 5 minutes go up on the clock. Overtime here in game one.
Will Giannis win a title in a Milwaukee Bucks uniform?
It's hard for me to say that, Jay, considering how loaded the Lakers are. I don't know if you've been watching Taylor Horton Tucker over the last couple of days.
But what if those mysteries could be solved? What if those conspiracies are reality? The hoop truth is out there. Can you handle it? It's 10 a.m. Pacific time, and I've got good news and I have bad news that apply almost exclusively to the hosts of this podcast, but I'm going to share it with you guys anyways. The good news is that Kendrick dropped a new album, and Dre's Warriors closed out the Make Memphis Grit Again Grizzlies in 6 and are off to another Western Conference Finals. The bad news is that Jack Harlow dropped a new album, and my Milwaukee Bucks have decided to go through 7 games in the second round for the second straight year. And I deal with a lot of anxiety on a daily basis, so if you're watching those games, you can imagine how I feel about that. I'm already in shambles, I'm fully honest. Every take possible has been tweeted out or is on YouTube about those 2 albums, and we're not going to be talking about that today, but we will be sticking to discussing the second round in today's podcast. But first, introductions. Joining me, as always, is the official co-host of the Hoop Truther podcast, one of the hardest working men on Twitter. You can follow him at Nick Andre ATR on there. It's, of course, Nick Andre Dre. Good morning. How are you, sir?
I am good. I didn't expect the Jack Harlow hate, but despite the Warriors giving me just so many nightmares over the last few games, we're doing good.
I plugged his Twitter. If you want to go through last night's tweets, you can go check it out. It's pretty fun. Shambles. I'm telling you, anytime we're playing, it's shambles. You guys know Dre, but you must know today's special guest as well. Joining the Hoop Truther Trust Circle for the first time, perhaps one of the hardest working people in the hoop media space. Let's read off the resi really quickly.
Oh, geez.
The co-host of the Spinsters podcast, the host of the Take It From LA show on Jordan Brands. Jordan, you guys know Jordan. And the Buckets 5, a show on Buckets on YouTube with Jordan Ligons. It's, of course, Jordan Ligons. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
So let's start right away. There's no NBA games today. For the first time in a while. We've got 2 very big games tomorrow, but we're going to talk about that later. Instead, why don't we go ahead and start with what has been both of your guys' specialties lately. I'm stuck in NBA playoffs right now. I'll be fully honest. I don't watch college. I don't watch Euro. I haven't watched anything but the NBA. And I see all the content, though. Everyone has switched over. Like, significantly more coverage right now is being dedicated to the WNBA's opening week. And both of you have been writing about it, so I want to hear about that first. We just had the first week, I believe, first full week of the season. Not that it matters, but just so you guys know, the Aces and Mystics lead their respective conferences at 3-1 so far. If there's a team to watch that from someone that has almost no knowledge of the league, I'm going to mansplain it to you right now. My pick would be the Aces. I'm a very big fan of the Becky Hammon signing for coach, even though I was really hoping she would get a job in the NBA before then. And they're shooting a lot of threes. It's a very modern offense. So that's the team. Also, Chase Serrano tweets about them. So if you care about that, go for it. They're they're leading the conference at that. That's where I'm going to leave it. Dre, Jordan, one of you guys go ahead and start. What have we seen in this first week of the WNBA? Why should people be tuning in?
I'll let the guest go first. I'll let Jordan go first.
Well, we've seen a lot. It's wonderful that so many people have crossed over and that the coverage is bigger and better. I have always been a W fan, so I'm just like I've known about this. I'm not new to this. I'm true to this. So the WNBA is awesome. The Aces are a wonderful team to hop on the bandwagon. It's almost full, but hop on. Becky Hammond is making them play super fast. Bill Lambier was their coach prior. A lot of
Right.
people who aren't WNBA fans are always shocked to know that, but they had Liz Cambage and Asia Wilson kind of doing a Twin Towers approach, but now Liz is with my LA Sparks. So they're running. They're going fast. They got Kelsey Plum, De'Erica Hamby. They are really, really fun to watch. I am a homer and I'm a Lakers fan and I'm a Sparks fan. So I think my LA Sparks are looking really, really good. My girl Jordan Canada is from Seattle. We have Liz, we have Kennedy Carter. So the Showtime LA Sparks are back. They're looking good.
So since we're on the Sparks, I'm going to get into this because I guess you could say I'm a little biased. I'm a fan of Jordan Canada. I'm a fan of Lexi Brown, but I'm still questioning why Derek Fisher hasn't really given Kennedy Carter really the opportunity because, in my opinion, she's Showtime. She's a superstar in the making. And I felt like with her coming into this team, she was going to take them to another level. Obviously, we haven't seen it as of yet, but how do you feel about the situation with Kennedy coming off the bench so far?
Yeah, I don't even get me started on Derek Fisher. He's so terrible. I think I've put out there loud and clear that I don't know how he got this job, but her nickname is Hollywood. Like it's perfect
Mm-hmm.
fit for her. She should be, more in the rotation. I think they're still trying to figure it out. The Sparks team had a lot of guards, and as you know, if you're on WNBA Twitter, Taya Cooper got cut, Arilla Gutierrez got cut, two really marketable players and two, they were both a part of Jordan Brand. Like they are big time and they just got waived. So for Kennedy Carter to make that cut, I think they're still just trying to figure out her rotation. Her revenge game was supposed to be that Atlanta game.
I
It was
agree.
like
I
it
agree
was like
100%.
time. It was time for her to really come out. And I think a little bit of nerves and it just didn't really go as planned. But I still think as the season goes on, he'll put her more into the rotation and she'll be able to prove herself.
Really quickly before we move on with anything else, while we're on the subject, yesterday the news came out that Brittany Griner's detention in Russia will be extended at least 30 days, and she was also denied house arrest. If you're unfamiliar with the situation, she was in airport security, was found with two carts essentially, and has been detained for that. And it's gone on far too long, a situation that wouldn't have happened if players didn't have to go overseas to play in the off season to be able to, live. But beyond all of that, just so everyone's clear, 30 more days minimum. And it really sucks because whether she comes back to play or not, they've already guaranteed her contract. If she wants to take off the rest of the season, by all means, this isn't about getting her back for basketball. It's just, I don't know. It's really scary times, and it's especially scary times to be detained in Russia, I think. So I'm, just putting out there that we're all hoping she gets back for her, nothing else.
Yes, it's so scary. A lot of people aren't familiar with why she was even over there in the first place, and just like you said, women basketball players have to play overseas to make a living. She was getting paid way more than what she was getting paid here, but it sucks that that situation has turned into this situation. And if you saw those photos of her kind of going viral, just really breaks your heart because it just doesn't look like the Brittany Griner who's bubbly and outgoing and
Right.
fun that we know and love and have been watching for years. So the whole situation is very, very scary, and it's no reason for her to be over there that long. So I know the W and all the WNBA fans are just lifting her up in prayer and just hoping that she comes home safe, because you're right. We don't care about the X's and O's. The Phoenix Mercury don't care if she's on their roster. They just want her safe with her wife who just graduated law school. Just a huge accomplishment that Brittany wasn't able to be there for because she is wrongfully detained in Russia.
Right, yeah, it's just a scary situation, especially for Brittany Griner, who I've been following for so many years, as she's battled mental health throughout the years. And then, of course, last year, I don't know if people really paid attention, but last year she probably had her best season in the WNBA, obviously in the WNBA as the Mercury made their way to the finals. So for all this to transpire for her, I'm honestly an advocate for her whenever she does get home, just sitting out for the rest of the year. I feel like it'll be good for her, especially with everything that she's been through over the last few months.
Yeah,
nobody would blame her.
No, of course not. Of course not. Hopefully there's a swift resolution to that, onto what's already not been a swift resolution. Really frustrating that it hasn't been solved so far. In terms of, let's talk about the Fever. I've got one quick thing, and I was listening to the videos that you have on YouTube for the previews for the WNBA season. Go check that out on the Buckets YouTube. The Fever have been in a long rebuild. So my immediate comp is the Sacramento Kings, especially in terms of not necessarily waving top 10 talent.
I never actually thought of it like that.
Me neither. Tough.
It's what it sounds like on first basis. But it sounded like you were pretty interested in them before the season, and I saw some tweets yesterday that they got their first OT win since July 2015, which is just like so long to be beaten down. That's very classic King stuff, in my opinion. But that shows something. I mean, OT wins doesn't mean you're going to win the championship that year, you're going to make the playoffs or anything, but it does show that you have people, at least since 2015, that want to win on a nightly basis. And does that seem like a culture change for the team at all?
Yeah, that's so interesting, the Sacramento Kings comp. I haven't thought about that, but I think it's similar in the way that, just like the Kings, they're really only getting their future players through draft picks, right? Not a lot of people are wanting to go to Sacramento. I'm from Sacramento. I don't blame you. They're not trying to go to Indiana just on free agency or anything like that. So draft is where they get their goods. And for this draft, they had 4 picks in the first round, which, if you guys don't know, the WNBA only has 12 picks in the first round. So there's only 12 teams. So that's kind of unheard of to have that many draft picks. And I kind of explain it in the Buckets video. I compare it to the show that I'm watching, what is it called? Map to the Heart or something like that, with Brené Brown on HBO. And she talks about how anxiety and excitement can kind of be mixed together. Sometimes when we're going into a situation, we confuse the two. And that's how I feel about the Fever. I'm excited, but I'm also super anxious because it could be a culture change. It could be the rookies doing really great, or it could be another terrible losing season again. Like, we really don't know. The last 2 seasons, they've only won 12 games total. They don't have Tamika Catchings in the front office anymore, which we were hopeful, but also she didn't really do that well, which is similar to the Kings. Hello, Diva.
Right.
So I think with the Fever, I want to say it's a culture shift. They have so many young players. There's no expectation. So I hope they have fun, and more like the Hornets. The Hornets, they didn't have any expectations when LaMelo, and they're building pieces. They have this rookie. They draft him. They're throwing alley-oops. They're having fun. And that's what I want the Fever to be. Just forget about everything else. Just have fun, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I saw somebody tweet, I think it was Mark Schindler, that we don't appreciate mid-tier fun teams enough. And a lot of people were quoting that with the Hornets of this year, a team that didn't play defense, didn't really care about it, and just highlights every single night. That would be a really cool outcome for the Fever. Dre, anything else from the first week that you noticed?
I think we need to touch on the Washington Mystics, because they've been on a roll throughout this first part of the throughout this first week of the season. Obviously with Elena Delle Donne being back, it still hurts me because we never really got to see that duo of Elena Delle Donne and Tina Charles to see like what they really could have been. Obviously Tina Charles is now with Phoenix, But now with Elena Delle Donne being back alongside Ariel Atkins, Natasha Cloud, Maisha Hines-Allen, this team is looking dangerous. I don't know exactly where they will be placed as far as, like, by the end of the year, but this is definitely a playoff contender that people need to be looking out for.
I totally agree. I was watching the Mystics game yesterday, and I had that same thought. I was waiting for Tina Charles to come off the bench. I was like, wait, why isn't Tina? And I'm like, oh no, we never even got to appreciate that amazing super team that would have been. But Elena Delle Donne is healthy for the first time in 2 years, and just for people who love basketball, you want her to play basketball. You want to watch her play basketball. She's really, really good at it. They also have a 5'4" Japanese point guard by Rui Mashida, who is killing everything that she does. She's so good. If you watch the Tokyo Olympics, she was averaging almost 13 assists during the whole game. She had 18 assists against France, which is like, what? So I love that Coach Mike, found her, signed her, and she is already showing that she belongs in this league. So that's been fun to watch too with the Mystics.
One of my favorite things that happens in the NBA is when overseas point guards that are short but incredible passers, usually with a soccer background, just start doing things. One of my favorites is like a 37-year-old rookie, Pablo Prigioni, just showing people how to pass. So when I saw Rui pop up in your video as a short ultra passer that has, really taken it to people in the Olympics before, I got stupid excited about that.
Yeah, that's a great comp. She's really good, and I think this is a great fit for her on the W, because she has Elena Delle Donne to pass it to. She has Ariel Atkins and Alicia Clark, so she's gonna get those assists. She has superstars on her team.
How are we feeling about then? This is just me looking stuff up again. I don't want to portray like I fully know what I'm talking about.
You want me to go? You want me to take over real quick?
I've got one thing, and then
Okay.
I'll get you. How are we feeling about number 1 overall pick, Ryan Howard, averaging 16.7 points, 5 rebounds, 2.3 assists, with 46% from 3 on 8 attempts, which is some legit volume shooting. I had that word prepared like 2 minutes ago for this, and I completely blanked there. Some volume shooting from the number 1 overall pick. Maybe those numbers aren't MVP, but I knew she was getting a little bit of that hype after dropping some big scoring numbers. How are we feeling so far?
I love it. I love Ryan. She's so league ready. She really proved that at University of Kentucky, where she was getting double teamed, triple teamed, and still won SEC Player of the Year, still won the SEC championship. So she is a big guard, which is not a lot in the W. I think overall she can score at ease. She is not trigger shy, just like you said. She is going to shoot. And Atlanta has really given her the keys to say, like, we need change. We want to win. We want to be a winning program. Renee Montgomery, new ownership, fairly new gym. Like, they are ready for the new leaf to turn. And Ryan Howard is the perfect player to do that. She's so good. She's so quiet off the court, so shy. You have to like really pull an answer out of her. But on the court, she's a silent assassin. Like, she's so good. She doesn't need to tell anybody anything.
No, that's true. I'm honestly really optimistic about the Dream's future, because if you remember last year, Ari McDonald, in my opinion, had a really good year last year. And now on top of that, you add on Ryan Howard, and then of course you trade for Erica Wheeler. Mm-hmm. You still have other great talents as well. I personally believe that the Dream could possibly get the 8th seed in the playoffs. I don't know if it could happen. It may happen, may not, but I think they have a really high chance of making that happen.
I think so too. I don't think you're off on that. Yeah. They can, again, last season they only won 8 games total. They are already so much better than that because they have 2 wins.
Sure.
The first time, I think I saw on a tweet, the first time since like 2017, since they have started a season 2-0. So they're winning in their mind. They're winning the championship.
Right. What else are we looking forward to this season? I know that there's some storylines, last seasons that are happening, first seasons that are happening that are exciting. What else are we looking forward to in this, which is, I think we say this every year. I see it on Twitter, at least. the biggest season in the WNBA. Every year it just keeps taking this jump in growth and popularity. What are we looking for in this season, narrative-wise? You know, we love the narratives in the media space.
Narrative wise, I think it's gonna be a lot surrounding the rookies. I think this was a big class. Shakira Austin with the Mystics, we didn't talk about earlier, but she's kind of my pick, a dark horse for rookie of the year. Ryan Howard, it's kind of hers to lose, but Shakira Austin is at a amazing fit with the Mystics, and she could really, really do some damage. As long as she gets the minutes, she'll produce. Other storylines, I think, is it Connecticut's year? Connecticut is a team that is always I think I said on the Spinsters episode, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. They have always been number one throughout the season. They are unbeatable. And then when it gets to the playoffs, they fall apart. And Alyssa Thomas is back and healthy. Can she really get them over the hump and win a championship? That when you look at the roster, it doesn't make any sense why they have not won in recent years. So I think that's going to be a storyline. Again, Becky Hammon, the Becky Hammon era, as everyone's talking about, it has begun. Does that mean that the Aces are going to go far in the playoffs? Does that mean that they're going to be in the finals? Those are some of the bigger scope storylines I think are going to be talked about.
So let's stay on the topic with Connecticut, because I mean, you're definitely right. This is a team that has been in those conversations as far as being a championship contender, as they've had the best record over the past few years. But obviously, the momentum just hasn't switched over to the playoffs. And give credit to the Chicago Sky. They definitely beat them.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, I feel like Connecticut should have beat that team and made their way to the finals, in my opinion. So let's say, for instance, Connecticut gets the same result this year. Like, what do you see possibly happening? Do you possibly see a new change within the organization? Does Kurt Miller leave? Like, what do you see?
If they don't get further in the playoffs, you're saying?
Yeah.
It's hard with the W, different from the NBA, of like, oh, you got to bring another superstar in to help, because every single team is a super team. Every team, there's not a lot of spots. So if you're on a spot and you're a starter on this team, you are a superstar, basically. So I don't know if it's personnel changes, but I will say having Courtney Williams back for this Connecticut Sun team, I think is going to help them, because the last time that they made a run was against my Sparks, and I was at that game when Derek Fisher did not play Candace Parker. I won't even go there. It's like PTSD. But Courtney Williams was a part of that team, and she really made a difference. So I think they're going to try, if they don't make it again this year, I think Kurt Miller's still safe, but they're going to try to fix some pieces really only in the guard position. I think Alyssa Thomas, Brianna Jones, like, they're safe. It's probably going to be switching up in the guard if they don't make it this year, but I think they will. Don't know if they'll win it, but I think they'll get there this year.
That's interesting, honestly, because to me, as a fan perspective, I want to see either Jonquil Jones or Asia Wilson win it. In my opinion, I feel like this is Asia's year, but like both of those teams, the Aces and the Connecticut Sun, have both been like those two teams that have been in that conversation, but just seem to have not like elevated themselves in the playoffs as of yet. So those are the two teams that I'm watching this year, as far as to see who can really make it to the finals and win a chip this year.
Yeah, we see it in the NBA all the time. It's a different season. When the playoffs start, it's a whole new season, and some players rise and some players fall. And it has been shocking in the W, particularly the last couple years, where the players you think would rise kind of aren't. And I don't know if it's on them. I don't know if it's the whole team, the opponent. Like, they really just have met their match. I think the Connecticut Sun did not want to see Chicago in those playoffs, like, especially with the momentum that Chicago had. It was just a tough matchup. So how much is it the matchup? How much is it the stars not starring? I don't know. But I feel like it's the same with the NBA too.
Any final thoughts on WNBA? Any final things you're looking forward to? Anything like that before we start transitioning to the second round of the NBA?
So I have one more question for you, Jordan. I'm sure you've been paying attention. Coming into the season, we've seen a lot of players. Obviously, you mentioned it earlier, like a lot of players like Taya Cooper, Crystal Dangerfield. A lot of them have been getting cut and waived by the team. So,
Yeah.
like, what have you been seeing from that? And as far as like, how do you feel about that?
It's tough. It's the hardest job to get in America. That is what I say. The WNBA roster spot is the hardest job to get and to
Mm-hmm.
keep. So when you see all these players getting waived, it just makes me think that I wish there was more teams. I wish there were more roster spots, and the whole, the talk of expansion. The WNBA came out with a very broad statement to say we are looking to add a few more teams in the next couple of years. Nothing specific at all, but it shows that we are hungry for growth, like as fans, and I'm sure as players, they're like, man, I just need a chance. Like, you don't even get a chance in training camp. If there's a vet
Mm-hmm.
there in your spot, you are getting waived. And that is the hardest part when it's the week before the season and you just see all of these players, especially rookies, high draft picks, just getting dropped off like flies. So I would actually want extending the rosters before we even get to the teams, before we even talk about a WNBA G League. Let's add a couple more roster spots that could just be practice players that we can pay them a little bit and they could be developed throughout the season. So in case someone gets hurt, in case someone, instead of signing these hardship contracts, having these players on the roster that are already developing. Because if you get waived, you kind of like, I don't know what you do. Like, you kind of
Right.
can't, you have to wait till the next overseas season. Like, the W is one of the only teams that plays in the summer. So you're kind of just staying ready, which is just hard.
Right.
Someone's like, you're fired, but just stay ready. Like, your situation could change any second. So having those practice players, I think, would be the quickest band-aid on the bigger issue, which is expansion. There needs to be more opportunities for the best women basketball players in the world to be able to play.
I agree 100%.
One final thing. This is coming out tomorrow, so this message is going to fall on deaf ears. But if you're an NBA slave like myself, I am by all accounts an NBA slave. There are pockets where, like today, Saturday, the 14th, I just checked, that there is no NBA, that there are WNBA games. Today at, I think, noon Pacific, you got Sue Bird versus Diana Taurasi. That's most points in WNBA history versus most assists in WNBA history. And not necessarily just that, but we've got like a month of this NBA shit left. And there's going to be a lot of that depression afterwards because the NBA playoffs is every single day. But like she said, one of the few leagues playing in the summer. Pick a team, get on the bandwagon. You guys already know I'm already on the biggest bandwagon there is for it. Let's move on to the second round of the playoffs. I'm going to save the Bucks and Celtics game 7 for last. I'm already pissing and shitting myself about that game, so let's just hold it for right now. Let's go with the Heat beating the Sixers in 6
Okay,
games.
thank God. I thought you were going Grizzlies Warriors first. I was like, please give me a break too.
You're fine. Heat beat the Sixers in 6. Dre, one thought. Sixers are keeping Doc per reports.
Honestly, I'm not surprised by it, but
Yeah.
I just want to say I don't know what the future holds for James Harden at this point. And I'm a Harden fan to a degree, but considering that he only took 2 shots in the second half in an elimination game, like it's just uncalled for in my opinion, especially considering that you are the second option for this team. It's like it's fair to say that James Harden has definitely lost a step. And watching that game 6 against Miami, the team just had no fight in them. They weren't going for loose balls. They were giving up offensive rebounds. Shout out to Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler averaged around 27, I believe, throughout the series. But I don't know where Philly goes this year. Honestly, I don't know. People are still debating like who won the trade between the Ben Simmons James Harden trade, but
Houston.
It's looking bad right now. Houston.
They got the picks.
That's true.
They're gonna do better. Let's be realistic. Owners, billionaires are people too, and Doc Rivers has 3 years left on his contract at $8 million a year. They're not going to fire him and pay him right now. They gave him an extension, I think, actually, after last year's playoff loss, where a lot of people were calling for their heads as well. Listen, Doc's a good dude, like a good man by all accounts, which is asking a lot out of professional athletes and coaches sometimes. And it is unfair, the treatment that he gets online, but goddamn, am I glad he does not coach the Milwaukee Bucks. I say this a lot. Doc Rivers went to Marquette. If he was a free agent at the time that we hired Budenholzer, we would have hired him. It just would have happened. There's an alternate universe going on there. A good one, like Everything Everywhere, not the other ones, where it's just Doc Rivers coaching them, and you think Bud is bad in these things, which I'm going to talk about later. Sorry. Harden, Jordan, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about Harden? I don't think you're giving him the max, but what are you thinking with that?
It's not looking good. It's not looking good for our boy James Harden. It doesn't look like he likes basketball anymore. Like he's kind of just existing out there. And Joel Embiid, 2 years in a row, throwing their teammates under the bus is like, you guys expected Houston James Harden. He's not that guy anymore. He's more of a facilitator. That's not why you brought him there. No, you didn't bring him there to be all-time leader in assists. You brought him there to help you, Joel Embiid. And that is not what he did. And you guys traded him for somebody who didn't help you in those situations. So I don't know what is going on in Philly right now. Doc, he needs to not talk in post-game pressers because, he straight up said, nobody expected us to be here. Everyone expected you to be in these playoffs.
Right.
You have an MVP candidate on your team.
You have an MVP candidate and you traded for a former MVP. Like everyone expected you to be everywhere. So I don't even know what is going through his head. He's like in defense mode because he knows everyone on the internet is just tearing him down, as we should. But it's a dumpster fire. I don't know who they get. I don't know who they take away, but the fans are booing him. I'm booing him. It's just not looking good. And they gave up. In that last game. They
lost by 11, and they pulled their starters with a few minutes left. Like, that's not impossible. We saw the Bucks do better like 2 games ago. Not that it's a comparable situation, but like it's not nothing to do that. And Embiid alluded to that a lot in his post-game conference, saying that a lot of those guys just didn't want to win, which is realistically true. Bag Twitter has gone into dog Twitter as well on NBA, and if you want to fall into the stereotype, the Sixers don't really have any dogs. I mean, Embiid, I would say, has that. He does want to win. He plays really hard. He plays through injuries. However you feel about the grifting, it's something that all superstars do. Okay, but beyond that,
do you consider Matisse Thybulle a dog?
No. What?
An unvaxxed dog.
Yeah, exactly. A one-shot dog. I don't know how valuable that is. I mean, he's a good defender, but being a dog doesn't just mean you're a good defender. There's plenty of good defenders out there that give up when the getting bad.
Should Philly go out and get Patrick Beverley?
I guess. God. I mean, I why not? I mean, listen.
Shrugs.
I don't hate Patrick Beverley. I watch him sometimes and I shake my head like a conservative dad sometimes, but he is the same everywhere. And everywhere he's gone, it has infected the rest of the team for better and I guess like a little bit to the worst, but that Timberwolves team didn't do anything for decades, and the first time they made it to the playoffs, they got basically swept by the Rockets. They actually fought against a team that just took the Warriors to 6 without their superstar. And Patrick Beverley was a big part of that. Did it end up biting him in the ass when he did the too small celebration every single time and John Morant decided to be worlds better than him because he is worlds better than him? Does that affect Philly? Maybe. Does that make them a better team? Maybe. But I think it's a lot more bandages that you need than Patrick Beverley for that team. Honestly, if you bring Patrick Beverley, you're glad Simmons gone because he would have broken Simmons. You think Jimmy broke Simmons? There's a lot. I think there's one. There's still a nuclear option for Philadelphia here, and that's not trading Joel Embiid or anyone else. They rumor there might be an investigation when Harden forgot to submit his player option paperwork that maybe he'll sign for less, and they'll be able to go after a max contract guy after trading Tobias Harris. I don't know if people want to join that dumpster fire, but if Bradley Beal is going to leave Washington in that massive contract for anything, there's been small rumors. This is nothing. There's nothing that I've seen with actual sources. I'm just connecting dots. Like the only way that they can get significantly better, and they have more options than a lot of other teams. They have that option. I don't know what that does to their prospects, but the Sixers aren't completely out of this. Everyone made the joke. Pairing Harden and Doc Rivers in the playoffs is just perfect.
Recipe for disaster.
It's perfect, and it happened that way. I really don't want to talk about the Sixers anymore. Do you guys have any?
Well, hang on. So let's be hypothetical. Like, let's say, for instance, a Beal trade is likely to happen. Who do you see possibly leaving? Or okay, is it free agent? Okay, good. Because I was going to say, like, if Tyrese Maxey is a part of that deal,
He's not.
I don't know how to feel about that.
That wouldn't be worth it. All I have to say, last thing I'll say is Tobias Harris over me.
Yeah.
That was so good. Jimmy Butler is the dog that you're talking about. And that's why Miami is so good. And I think myself included, we talk so much about the Sixers that we kind of are. Miami is just floating through. Like they're on their way to the Eastern Conference Finals. And we're just still. Me too. I'm in the fire. I'm in the dumpster fire of the Sixers and Doc Rivers. But Miami, without Kyle Lowry, is doing amazing things because they have this dog in Jimmy Butler. And he's so, so good. And I don't think we give him enough credit for just like even just how nice he is. He's like, I love Embiid. I'm so proud of him. Like I'm all for the feelings in the playoffs. But he's so good and he's going to continue to be good, and I don't know who is going to beat this defensive minded team. I think if they match up with the Celtics, the score is going to be like 5-5. Like it's just going to be so much.
You shouldn't have said that.
No, it's fine.
You should have said the Celtics.
It's fine. I've been watching the broadcasters go for Boston the whole time too. It's fine. Big cities stick together.
I'm a Lakers fan. I'm never going for Boston. I'm just using it as an example.
No, I'm just teasing. Miami's flying under the radar, and if you ask them, that's exactly what they want. They prefer to be that
all
way.
Year.
All of those players have a chip on their shoulder, and as a Bucks fan, I've got a whole lot of emotions concerning the Miami Heat, all the way back to the Bucks in 6 origination. By the way, that's when Brandon Jennings said they'd win in 6, and we got swept by the LeBron James Heat. Honestly, no negative feelings about that. It's just funny that originated in a Miami Heat series. But they're a monstrous defensive team, and I think while everyone from Boston was calling the Boston defense the 92 Bulls reincarnate, the Heat defense, I think, at least in terms of what a lot of these defenses in the East are built to build a wall against Giannis and stop Giannis. In terms of that personnel, Miami is tops in the league, I would say.
Definitely.
Bam Adebayo, one of the most versatile bigs in the league. Kind of surprising he wasn't top 3 DPOI despite the missed games. Offensively, when he's on, but he does float for some games. Jimmy Butler doesn't typically have that, but his defensive acumen speaks for itself. And plugging up that front court between those guys is a guy who knows Giannis really well. And I was really hoping, and obviously Sunday still has to happen, that this situation wouldn't happen in the playoffs because PJ is going to guard Giannis. I mean, he's been dealing with annoying, bald, stout defenders for 2 straight playoff series, and it'll be a third after Caruso and Grant Williams. He'll face PJ Tucker, who's like the third evolution of the Pokemon of those 3 ball guys. I'm going to make that meme. You look for that on Twitter. I'm going to make it. I don't know how to use Photoshop, so I'll use the Instagram cropping thing. And he knows. He guarded him in practice for half a year, and that's all PJ Tucker needs, believe me, to get an analysis on your game. And he'll be plugging it in between two elite defenders, not to mention Kyle Lowry. If he's healthy, again, they're beating the Sixers without Kyle Lowry. Consistent hamstring issue, which we saw kill Harden's playoff run last year, basically. Hopefully it doesn't with Lowry. And then the shooting guard, which is a question mark. But Victor Oladipo, if you want to talk about chips on your shoulder, he's there then. The Heat are very good. I still have questions about seeing their half-court offense against an actual NBA defense because I wouldn't necessarily call the Hawks or the Sixers that on either end, despite Embiid being, a great rim protector and they don't want to mess with it. But let's see how they do against either. I'll say either the Bucks or the Celtics defense in the next round. Dre, any thoughts on the Heat before we move on to your series?
As a Warriors fan, if we do make it to the finals, I'd rather see Miami rather than Boston or Milwaukee, personally.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean,
that's fair. Yeah, that is fair.
Any series that the Heat play from now on, they won't have the best player in the series, which is a massive disadvantage in the playoffs. They don't care. You ask them, they don't care.
Yeah,
which is a big advantage to their game. But that is a reality of it. So if you are a team, I guess, on the West, you'd probably rather see a Miami than a team that's got a Giannis, or in this playoffs even
a Tatum.
But we'll get to that. Warriors beat the Grizzlies in 6, and seems all pretty routine. Ja Morant, we're not going to talk about yesterday on the tweets. I just love that Ja tweets like a star wide receiver in the NFL. He is a genuine psychopath.
I didn't see him either.
It was a thinly veiled threat, I think, to a fan that it was more of a statement than anything else, but Twitter being Twitter ran off with it. But he was getting back and forth with some dudes with like 4 followers for no reason, just in his feelings a little bit, which is fine. But he will always tweet like that. That's the thing about Ja. He's never going to shut up. So this is him at his realest. But beyond that, I don't think the Grizzlies care that much. I mean, for most of the series, the youngest guy, the oldest guy they were starting was 26, and Dylan Brooks. And we'll talk about Dylan Brooks. But beyond him, they probably got the best potential in the league. I mean, they were 2 games from the Western Conference Finals in a series where Ja Morant was their best player, who's 23. Desmond Bane's a second-year player. Zaire Williams is playing 40 minutes in important playoff games and holding his own, not necessarily taking over a game, but holding his own at like 19, 18. Brandon Clark, who was out of the rotation, getting 40 offensive rebounds. There was a 1 to 2 month period in the NBA season where a late first would have gotten you Brandon Clark because he got out of the rotation, and the Grizzlies wanted to consolidate their rotation at that point anyways, and that is firmly closed. They're going to extend him. They're going to keep him. He's more valuable than Xavier Tillman at this point, who is another young center that they got in there, and not to mention Jaren Jackson Jr., who I think is, if he gets the foul trouble down, he is the unicorn we were promised. We've been promised this unicorn for a while. There's a lot of been fake prophets out there, fake disciples for these unicorns. He's the guy, all right? The defense is there. And honestly, the foul trouble was really only a thing for the first round in one Warriors game where Draymond Green's going to get you for one game. You don't even have to be as foul magnetism as Jaren Jackson for Draymond to do that to you. And the shot is there. The in-between, he doesn't need to become a 3-level scorer, but he is a bit hesitant on drives. But the shot is there. And the unicorn we were promised was just the shot and the defense. And it's there. Sorry, I went on the Grizzlies for like a minute there. What are your guys' thoughts?
I'll let Jordan go first.
I just looked at Ja's tweets. They were really good, honestly. Better than advertised. My favorite is Jonathan Kuminga tweeting, "Whoop that, ... and Ja quote tweeting, say, "Gotta earn some stripes first, kid."
Right. After losing to him.
Losing to him, but Kuminga, I mean, you can't really talk. He's a rookie, he's young, but like he was all over the place. He was starting and not, then all that. So you can't really be tweeting from the bench sometimes. So
that's fair.
That was amazing. The Grizzlies were fun. They were fun, and that whole series was. I know I'm not a Warriors fan. I'm not a Grizzlies fan, so I was having fun. But I'm sure Warriors fans were stressed out, and so were Grizzlies fans. But it was really like the basketball is in good hands. That's what I kept saying. There was a lot of outside noise with Twitter and the flagrant fouls and Draymond and like so much extra drama. But I didn't want that to lose sight of how good the basketball was most of the time. Not when the Warriors were losing by 50, but for majority of it, the basketball was really good. And I don't want that to get lost in everything else that is happening around this series. The Warriors are only beating themselves. Like, not a lot of teams are beating them. They are beating themselves. They are literally throwing the ball out of bounds like it's a cartoon, like, basketball game that they've never played before. So as long as they continue to take care of the ball, then
Oh,
that's
geez, there's my tweet.
like that's what it's gonna take. And I think, me and my fiance were talking about it all while we were watching the game. Memphis is too young to take advantage of those turnovers. There was no reason why they lost that game with how Warriors were turning the ball over. If you play against a Phoenix Suns, if you play against a Miami, if you play against Milwaukee, any of the teams that are left, that's not gonna work. So I don't blame Mike Brown all you want, but those turnovers have to get cleaned up immediately for them to even make it past the next round.
I agree.
Mike Brown, the recently signed coach of the Sacramento Kings.
Tough luck.
Yeah. Good luck though to him in Sacramento. Won a playoff series, first playoff series win for Sacramento in a decade and a half. So that's something for you guys to hang your hat on. Dre, are you worried about the Otto Porter injury? Is he going to be out long term at all?
I hope not. I'm not going to say I'm worried, but I'm not going to say I'm like not too worried at the same time. I just hope for the best for him as far as his injury.
Is Iggy coming back at all, or is he done?
He's just hanging out. He just got courtside seats.
Yeah. I don't really see where he even fits in the rotation at this point. When you think about it.
Yeah, he sat out for Memphis, and now he's sitting out through the Western Conference Finals, watching them in the same position that he watched their games, but just beating them. It was pretty cool. Good job for Iggy there. How high are we on Golden State? The turnovers are an issue, and they're going to face a significantly better defense in the next round, regardless of who wins that Game 7. We'll talk about that next. Maybe they'll clean up the turnovers, but I still think my position with the Warriors has still been this. The Suns or the Mavericks at their absolute best play some of the most beautiful constructed basketball that we see in the league and some of the best basketball that we see possible. The Warriors at their absolute best break the game of basketball entirely as we know it. It's just a barrage. What was it? 70 rebounds and 23s last night. Despite the turnovers, it's impossible to beat a team putting up things like that. And I think
shout out to Kevon Looney for all those rebounds.
Milwaukee, the pride of Milwaukee, Kevon Looney, the pre-draft next Kevin Durant, Kevon Looney, pulling out 20-something rebounds. They just break it. I don't know if they can reach that ceiling in every game, and certainly there's flaws to it, despite the 23s and the 70 rebounds, so many turnovers. I just think that trumps anything, just like how Luka is trumping the Suns simply because he doesn't have to play organized basketball. He can just do Luka for a lot of the game. So how high are we on Golden State? Do we think that the next defense they see will break them, or is their ceiling still higher than everyone else's? Jordan, go first.
I think with Kevon Looney, like, we did see him play the most minutes that we have seen in a while. Like, even though he would start, he probably wouldn't play again until he started the second half. So I think it was smart for Memphis to go with Steven Adams, and that is the thing that you have the better chance. You're not going to outshoot the Warriors. We know this. So you're going to have to play inside. You're going to have to beat them up a little bit inside. And so what are the bigs looking like for the next couple series, the next potential players that they could play? DeAndre Ayton is going to be a problem for them if the Suns come out. So that's something that I'm worried about for the Warriors. But they know if anything else, they can hang their hat on their shooting. And that's something that you got to live and die by it, because when they're not falling, they're not falling. But when they are, like last night, it's really hard to stop them. Really, really hard. So like I said with the top of this, they're only beating themselves. If they clean up that, they are virtually unbeatable. And we all know this, anybody who has watched a second of Warriors basketball.
Dre, you've certainly been tweeting like you're not necessarily hopeful of this team's ceiling, but how are you feeling? I mean, you won the series, maybe not as the way you had intended, but how are you feeling now that you've got a couple of extra days of rest and they're going to be coming off a grueling 7-game series regardless?
I think the Warriors are figured out. I feel like, with Steve Kerr coming back on the sideline and everything, like this is a team that's been in these situations on numerous occasions. So I have no doubt in my mind that they'll be able to figure it out. But we definitely need to clean up the turnovers. That's one thing. And then also another thing for me, I know that Klay had a really good game six Klay, obviously, but we need a much better Klay throughout the next series, obviously against Phoenix, because throughout most of this series, there was a lot of bad situations for him, particularly in game 2 where he really cost the game for us. So that's really what I'm looking to see, is a better Klay Thompson going into this next series, and then obviously moving forward as well.
Game 6 Klay. Game 6 Klay, baby. On that topic, really quick, with Steve Kerr, I don't know if you guys have been watching the NBA noticing, but a few more after a long break of protocols back in. Famously, Paul George was out for the play-in game, but we've had a couple of players and a couple of coaches get it. You don't have to be a believer in science, even though I'd prefer you to be, but you can be a believer in trends. And the trend, like every time regulations step back, it's going back up. Stay safe out there, guys. Please do. Let's move on to Suns Mavs Game 7. 2 Game 7s tomorrow, baby. It's going to be terrible. I'm going to be fully honest with you. For me, if you're neutral, it's going to be the best day of the NBA so far for you. For me, it's going to be terrible. Yesterday, I worked remote, and I was just riddled with anxiety all the way up until game time. It was terrible. The Suns have been susceptible to teams with a singular better player than them. Last year against Giannis, this year against Luka Doncic. They have been just outperforming their stars on a nightly basis and at some point stopping them. The Mavs defense has been stifling. Special shouts out to Reggie Bullock, Dorian Finney-Smith, Maxi Kleba, same hometown as Dirk, by the way, and Frankie Smokes. I'm so excited to talk about Frank Ntilikina today. I was a believer in the draft, but I should have always known that a Knicks team would have not done anything with it. Remember, Tibbs would not throw him out there in the middle of an important playoff series to guard Trae Young because he didn't have run on him. And the opposite happened in this series, where they threw him out to guard Booker and Chris Paul, and effectively, by the way, out of nowhere. Jason Kidd has escaped the bad coach allegations, and that's all the allegations he will be escaping on this podcast. Yeah. Dre, on this series, Game 7, how are you feeling? How do you think we're getting there?
So, obviously, a few episodes ago, we definitely made our predictions, and I said that the Suns were going to win in 6, but I'm going the other route. I'm going Dallas in 7. I'm going to go for the underdog.
Oh, no.
This is wild for me, but obviously I'm being biased as a Warriors fan. I don't want to see Phoenix, but I personally think that Luka Doncic is going to get the job done, in my opinion. I know Game 7 Luka. I'm going for it. I know Devin Booker's played pretty well. Chris Paul definitely has to step it up from an offensive perspective, especially over the past few games that he has had. Yeah. And then obviously Aiden as well, but I don't know, man. It's like, the Suns obviously have all the advantage. Obviously they have home court advantage and everything, but I'm going to go for the underdog. I'm going to go for Dallas.
Let's mention Chris Paul really quickly. You mentioned he's been slowing down. Another long playoff run where he's broken down a little bit. Last 4 games, 9.3 points, 6.3 assists, 4 rebounds a game. That's not going to cut it. More assists than turnovers in 2 of the last 4 games for the point god. After starting the series with 19 points and 28 points, he has scored now higher than 13 since. Has not made more than 5 shots in the past 4 games, despite really good percentages. It's still like 45 and 50 from 3, but he's just not putting them up, and has taken 2 total free throws in the past 4 games for the Rip Through King. That was the biggest one for me.
Yeah.
Jordan, we saw this last year with the Bucks full court pressing him with Drew Holiday, and in this series, Frankie Smokes, Frank Ntilikina, the French Knight is not a nickname of his, is picking up Chris Paul full court, and it's gotten him into some things. The thing that I noticed the most, sorry, I'm going to stop talking in a second, is that eventually he just starts losing the handle. It's not even deflections or steals. It's just he's overthinking the full court pressure and he'll lose the ball. And that's when you know it's starting to get there. How are you feeling about this defense? And do you think he's going to pull through it in the game 7?
I want Chris Paul to make it through this series. I want him to win a championship. I love Chris Paul. I really want that for him. Um, being a former point guard, it sucks to be pressured full court for a full game.
Yeah.
You are exhausted. And above anything else, it slows down getting into your sets. And I think that's what Phoenix has looked out of whack. Like
Yeah.
they don't even know what to run, who to pass it to. After you're getting full press the whole time, then you're starting your offense later in the shot clock. So that is working to Dallas's advantage. I don't know if they can have somebody else bring it up, do a
Right.
couple quick passes to get into their offense so he's not laboring, dribbling. Like it takes so much on your body to be pressed for a full game. So I don't want that to happen to Chris Paul.
Right.
I believe more in his competitiveness and his will to win than his handle or the defense or anything else.
Yeah.
Like, I think he's like, this is a game 7. We know we can beat this Dallas team. We're going to win. I believe in that more. I hope Booker steps up. I hope Ayton has a good game. It's going to take everybody to have a good game. They're at home. Maybe Jay Crowder's threes will drop because they're at home. Like Luka is an amazing player, but it's just like you said, it's him. Like it's only him, really, on the offensive end. So if they just go into the game knowing that and saying like the real people are going to be the Warriors that we're trying to beat, but like we know we can get past this Dallas team. I'm terrified that Dre, you're going to be right and that the Dallas are going to win. That's what we don't want. And it would be such a letdown of, like I mentioned earlier, Connecticut Sun type feel. Phoenix were the number 1 team the whole season long.
Yeah.
They were playing so good. And to drop in the second round would be a travesty. So I hope you're not right.
And it's not just on the offensive end where he's getting a lot of load with his game. On the defensive end, they're going for the pick and roll, and he's not a bad defender by any means, not even necessarily in the post. He fights, he's stout like Drew Holiday and Kyle Lowry are in the paint. But the point of them isn't necessarily to score. Obviously, they do have a better time scoring on him than some of their other options. But the point is also just continue making him part of the game and getting the tread on his legs. Wearing him down.
Spring chicken.
Yeah, both of them. And if he pulls it through, it's going to be massive for them. But like you said, the other ones have to step up. Devin Booker has heard a lot this series that Luka is a true superstar and he's who Booker thinks he is. And he reads like a guy that hears the noise. Not that he always talks about it, but he hears the noise 100%. And we've had this petty war between Booker and Luka where they're like pinching each other and shit and, calling each other names and taking the ball from each other like siblings. It's really like a sibling rivalry with them, although it should be a sibling rivalry between Luka and Ayton. We can talk about that too. How are you guys feeling about this? I mean, you've seen the clips of Booker and Luka really get into it. The Luka special clip, the taking the ball out of his hands. Jordan, are you a fan of the pettiness?
I am to a degree. I just think if you're a Booker, you just got to be able to back it up too with scoring. Because Luka is going to be Luka, and he's going to be the superstar for this Dallas team. So he's petty. He's doing this whole thing now where he's trying not to get technical. So he's just smiling at the refs and he's giving them the thumbs up. That's the pettiness that I love, where it's just like, good call. You're doing your job. Like, I love that, but he's also going to drop 30 or 35. So Booker, if you're going to have that pettiness, we need you to also drop 30, 40 to get past this Luka team. And of course, the pettiest person is going to be the person that wins. So that's the crown that you should want rather than all these other petty arguments.
Dre said that you don't want to be a front runner, but we've seen a lot of front running in these playoffs, and you'll see it from whoever wins Game 7 up into the conference finals, because both of them have been itching to talk shit about this series to the other one. Dre, last thoughts on Suns Mavs games? I haven't actually. So we've got Jordan pulling for the Suns, Dre pulling for the Mavs. I'm going to go with Suns in 7. I think they're a better team, and I think Luka has the game. I think closeout Luka shows up. I'm not so sure if the shot shows up in Phoenix. It's a hard place to go.
That's true.
If Dorian's shot hits, if Reggie's shots hit, there's not really beating a Luka-led team, but I'm not so sure. It might come down to some Jalen Brunson. Dre, last thoughts on this series before we move on to the one that I don't really want to talk about.
I'm telling you guys, look out for Spencer Dinwiddie. Look out for Dorian Finney-Smith. Maxi Kleber. These shots are going to be falling, and that's going to be the outcome of this matchup. Dallas is 7.
Ooh, I hope you're all right.
Yeah, I'll be worried about Spencer Dinwiddie when the crypto market starts going back up. They say that their performances are aligned. Let's run through this really quickly, and then we'll head on out. Bucks Celtics Game 7. Jason Tatum, superstar reveal. 46 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists with 7 3-pointers made, and a lot of them just dribble pull-ups. Giannis, they waste a masterclass. Closeout Giannis shows up. Nearly nobody else beyond. Shout out Patty C for some nice finishes in the fourth quarter for him at all. 44 points, 20 rebounds, 6 assists. Shaq stat line, and they still lose by like double digits. It wasn't close in the last few minutes despite that Herculean effort from Giannis. Chris has reported from Windhorst like 30 minutes ago. I got the notification during this podcast, and I've been trying to hide the fear, but Middleton is unlikely to play in Game 7, so that's just fucking great for me. Will Drew show up in Game 7? Will a single other person, including Mike Budenholzer, show up in Game 7? Because I know Giannis will. Will Rob Williams show up? Because that actually helps us in our defensive scheme, and that would be really cool if he was healthy for that game. With a shooting return for the Celtics, 20 made threes in Game 6. One last thing, and I'll give it to you guys. 2018 playoffs, Bucks Celtics go to 7. No one won on the road in that series, and it's an easy win for the Celtics at home in Game 7. The Celtics, which seems like have gone through more turmoil than the Bucks since then, have Tice, Smart, Tatum, Al Horford, and Jaylen Brown still around from that roster. The Bucks, Chris and Giannis are the only ones from that series, and Chris hasn't played a single game. So I am not making a prediction. I am sitting quietly in my chair. How are you guys feeling about this from an objective point of view? Because clearly from the intro to the segment, I'm not going to be objective about this. Dre,
I'll make the prediction for you. I'm gonna go in Milwaukee for Game 7. I feel like they will. I feel like they will be the better team. It won't be easy. It will not be easy. Considering the way that Boston plays defense, it will not be easy. But my key is for Milwaukee is that, Tatum is definitely going to get his. Brown may get his, but you got to stop the other guys. Marcus Smart, you got to stop him. Al Horford cannot have a big game. I mean, I know he only had 4 points, but I believe he had, 10, 11 rebounds and 4 blocks, if I'm not mistaken.
Al Horford.
So you definitely have to, allow or not allow the role players to really have a significant game. And I feel like that will be probably the outcome for Milwaukee. Giannis is going to do his thing. Hopefully Drew is able to shoot efficiently. And then outside of that, who will be the next guy stepping up? Will it be Bobby Portis? Will it be Grayson Allen? Will it be Pat Connaughton? So that's really going to be the biggest story, is who will be that third option for Milwaukee.
Jordan, your thoughts and prediction.
I'm so sorry. If Chris Middleton is playing, this is a different series.
Right.
I think that's an obvious statement. But Giannis scored almost half of the points. Yeah. It didn't even look tired. It looked like just another day at work for him, unfortunately. But he needs some help. He needs some significant help. Like, it's not just showing up at this point. I think they're going to need to make an impact. Yeah. Drew Holiday is going to have a game to be able to get past the Celtics. Because if you look at it, yes, Jason Tatum, who I already think is a superstar. I think he has graduated from the young superstar, star, rising, whatever. He is a superstar. He's absolutely prolific at playing basketball. He didn't really need that much help. He just needs people to show up. Giannis needs someone to have the game of their life, to beat the Celtics team, because the defense is gonna be there. The whole thing is what they're saying in the locker room. Just step in front of Giannis, say a prayer, and we got a 50-50 chance of it being a charge or a block.
Yeah.
And getting him into foul trouble. Giannis played beautiful basketball, but it's not gonna be enough. He's gonna have to have some serious help, and that's why I might go Celtics at home.
Yeah,
because they're at home, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
At home. Jason Tatum has another great game, and I think the shooting is there. Like it's gonna be a lot. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Listen, without Middleton, and even maybe with Middleton, overall the Celtics are a better team. It's pretty easy to say that with that. So obviously that's the thing. Like I said, having the best player in a series, especially in a coin flip game 7, is a tremendous advantage to have in any sort of situation. But someone else has to step up really well. It's going to come down to who's getting minutes for who not. Grayson Allen, I don't think can play in the series at all. He's not even hitting his open threes at this point, which is the one reason he's out there. George Hill is Bud's guy. He does this every single year. It was Ersan Ilyasova. It was Jeff Teague. Now it's George Hill, and a former player of his who we trust just because he's a veteran. And Hill has done a couple of good things in terms of drawing fouls, but at his mobility right now, it's his best option in terms of playing defense, because he gets muscled and he gets past people, or people get past him. So trying to draw a foul is pretty much the only thing he can do. It's game 7. Eliminate them. Honestly, spot minutes for Javon Carter. Bucks fans have been screaming for this for right now. He hit all of his threes. So good. So good. He'll die for you out there. And honestly, I can't say the same for George or Grayson. And he played so well while George Hill was injured in the Bulls series with an abdominal injury. And it's just what Bud does. It's a guy he trusts, and he'll stick with him for the entirety of the thing. And on some level, you have to trust your gut, but Javon has been nothing but the guy you want, another dog out there on the thing. In terms of people that can step up, beyond Giannis, game 7 on the road in Brooklyn last year, they've done it before. Brook Lopez showed up, and Brook Lopez is the all-time scorer for the Brooklyn Nets. You need to hunt mismatches. They did it once in the first quarter where they got him switched on to Jaylen Brown, who they have been targeting in the pick and roll. Easy flip. As soon as he's within half of the paint, any shot he puts up is like 70-80% of going in. That's just who Brook Lopez is. And I know you don't want to put too much strain on him because he does so much for you defensively, as well as coming off of a back surgery where he played like 16 total games. It's game 7. He's going to need to be able to lay it out there. Bobby Portis needs to show up. He has looked shaken in this series, honestly. The offensive rebounding has been great, but offensively, nothing. The shot looks shooken. It's not the eye, because he was playing great with the eye. Obviously, if it developed, I don't know what the condition of his eye is. But with the visor, after he killed the Bulls, he's playing them great every game. But the point is, he's still killing himself out there for you, which is why you want players like that. The big one for me, I think, is Drew. And he's a bellwether, just like Middleton is. He's not Chris Middleton. A lot of people, we still don't know who the second or third best player on the Bucks is, but the one can't do what the other one does. Chris Middleton can't play the level of defense that Drew does, and Drew clearly can't handle the offensive load.
Not at all.
We'll see if Patty C shows up, but closeout Giannis is going to be there. 12:30 p.m. Pacific time tomorrow. I'll probably not tweet during the whole thing. I'll probably turn off my phone.
That's safe. That's safe. I think all the players you went down, and it's just gonna something's gonna have to change. I know you're saying like Mike Budenholzer does this, but you just need someone to score. Even if you put someone in and they just score a bucket before they come out, but nobody is scoring, and you can't keep giving Grayson Allen all those minutes if he's laying a goose egg. And same with Bobby Portis, you're going to have to switch it up, even if it's just right before halftime, right before the quarter ends. Because even when Carter came in at the end of the game, when he took out all the starters, he scored 3 buckets really quick, I feel like. And he's just a microwave offensive player. So you have to use him if you want a chance. You just got to get somebody else that can score. It's nice to know that you just are like, my superstar is going to show up. That's a nice feeling, because I'm sure a lot of Brooklyn Nets fans were like, is he?
Right.
So you know that. But good luck. Turn off
Yeah.
your phone. Put the game on mute. Whatever you need to do, just make it through.
44-20, and they lost by double digits. It's not going to matter what Giannis does. He'll keep you in there, but you guys got to close it out. We'll see it tomorrow. That's going to wrap it up for this week's episode. Jordan, end of every Hot Ones episode, plug yourself. We've mentioned what you've got going on. Give us a little bit more detail.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. I have a billion jobs, but you can watch all the Take It From LA shows in the app, in the Nike app, and that was so much fun to do. You can listen to Spinsters, Blue Wire podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts. My new show with Wave TV and Buckets is called The Buckets 5, where I talk about WNBA stuff all season long. So yeah, follow me on Instagram, on Twitter, Jordan Ligons. I'm everywhere talking about basketball.
You can find Nick Andre at Nick Andre ATR on Twitter. He's tweeting about Warriors games, however he's feeling about them,
Stress.
posting articles all the time. Yeah, stressed out, Kendrick line, all that. Jordan, though, thanks so much for coming on. This was great. What a great way to open Saturday for us. I hope that the rest of your day goes well. I hope if you guys notice, although I really didn't, she's a little sick. I hope you feel better. But overall, just appreciate you coming on.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Yeah, I've been checking out your stuff since she was on the Ringer WNBA stuff. Even then, like she said, she's been a lifer. All right, so check out her stuff. All of it will be retweeted on the Twitter page that you can find at Hoop Truthers Pod. And get us on YouTube, Hoop Truthers Studios. If you want to look at our faces,
all platforms.
Yeah, they look okay. I think our faces are fine, but it's video. Check it out. It's something new. That's going to do it for us. We'll be back next week where I'll have a few days off after Game 7, whichever way it goes, so don't worry. I did cancel last week's episode when they lost that Game
Yes,
4.
he did.
I'm serious. It happened. And then the Warriors lost, so Dre was okay with it too. It's fine.
That's amazing.
It's fine. We'll catch you next week. Thank you for opening your third eye once again and discovering the Hoop Truth with us. We will see you next week.
Deuces.